So how does that, all those things, you know...
Oh, see, any one of those, all three of those together, they're all incredibly powerful practices. You know, just as you were describing them, I was just thinking to actually apply this all day would completely transform the way you are in the world.
Well,
and your relationship
yes.
with everything.
Yes. As an individual, I've done this for, you know, probably almost 2 decades now. I've been doing this. But you need social agreements. I've been in relationships where I couldn't create those social agreements with the ones that is my lover. I couldn't actually create that social agreement. So it's not, you know, there's a lot of good that happens for me that I can do, but having social agreements, I have them with, you know, some people and to varying levels, and some of them are because we've had the conversation, and sometimes it's because that's just what we do in certain ways. But really having a conscious choice to do this, it's got to start somewhere. I really don't, I think this is the evolution. I think we're headed that way. Why wouldn't we be? And it's all the things that we're talking about, and that that's my feeling anyway. Is just that how does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it resonates a lot because, in a sense, if I think of a practice that I apply for myself, it's around trying to take responsibility. As much as possible, and it's a practice for me because it's not something that comes naturally. That's why it's a practice.
Really?
It's
okay.
Well,
in some way, and all of us in some way are taking responsibility for something, and I'm still out there. Yeah. You know.
I mean, some things.
Whatever's annoying me in life, that's what you're not taking responsibility for in some way.
And that's the thing, and that's where I struggle to take responsibility.
So is there something you need to talk to me about?
It's no, it you know, it can happen in so many different ways, and it's really, as you were going through those different things, I mean, any one of those also is around taking responsibility for those things.
Exactly.
In what situations do I try and be first, best, right? You know, those kind of things, and take responsibility for that, and what the implications are, or what are the inferences, and take responsibility that those are inferences, and not
they exist, and then going looking for them.
Exactly. And the judgments, taking responsibility for judgments that I'm putting on the situation, that I'm making about the thing. I mean, any one of those things I can apply in that practice of responsibility as well. So it makes complete sense, and that's why it resonates.
Do you have tools that you use in taking responsibility? Do you have any examples of what you have taken responsibility for, what you're doing differently, and what's your practice? Like, how do you do that?
For me, the practice is looking at the things that I see as being external.
Yes.
And judging in some way, or struggling with in some way, and then trying to internalize them.
And figure out how I'm creating that.
Exactly. So I'm trying to shift that from the external to internal, and the practice is, well, if it's happening out there and I'm struggling to understand why, then why is it that I'm going back to what you were saying? If this is a reflection, if the external is a reflection of the internal, then why am I not seeing it? Why am I not owning it internally? Why am I seeing it there?
Yes.
And there's nothing I can do about it out there.
No.
So the only place I can do something with it is here. But first I have to own it.
Yes.
So I have to go through that process of
making the connection between what's showing up in my life that's not making me happy.
Yeah.
And causing pain for me in some kind of way, and then being able to figure out, well, how am I? The question you ask yourself is, how am I creating this? And you look inside and go, so what is it that I'm doing that I'm in? Sometimes it's just judgment. I'm judging, this behavior.
Yeah, but taking responsibility for it by owning it and saying, well, there's obviously something.
How tough is that experience for you? Like, some things are more difficult than others.
Some things are a lot more difficult. A lot.
Yeah. They didn't make it easy. Who designed this thing,
Jeez.
They didn't make it easy. It's a little bit confusing. We need elders. We actually need people talking to kids about, what their inner dialogue is, and beingness, and who they are, and expressing themselves, and speaking the truth, and having integrity, and finding, where this, and it's a gift you give yourself, and being able to give practical examples where they can experience it and go, have it be experiential.
Yeah, I mean that's the sense. I keep putting this up as the goal. Is that's where I'm wanting to get is that integrity, that sense of an integration between the internal and external, a sense of integration of what my inner world is and what I see reflected out there. Because if that's not, if I don't see the integration with that, then I don't have a sense of integrity.
Yes.
So.
Oh yeah. So that's now.
That's kind of,
yeah.
and that's almost what spurs me on to
Yeah.
say, okay, it's difficult to take responsibility for this, but if I'm interested in integrating, if I'm interested in integrity, if I'm interested in
having your life work for you,
yeah, then,
it's a gift you give yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, really, how much pain do you really need that comes at you from the external world?
Yeah.
So the things that you talked about in regards to practice is that you, first of all, have realized that anything that's approaching you from the external world that is making you uncomfortable at any level is coming from you at some
uncomfortable and comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that the good stuff is easy to take responsibility
I don't really need to worry about the good stuff. Let's just leave it right where it is. Yeah, I don't need to. I got enough to worry about with my fears. I don't really need to go examining, too much.
Integrating it and taking ownership for, and responsibility for all of it. Sometimes something might be a success, and that's equally important to take responsibility.
Yes.
But
most people don't have a problem with that. Usually, success has 1,000 fathers. So usually that one. But there are some people that actually aren't allowing in their successes. They will not. They refuse to see anything good about themselves. And some of those people are the most. They're good people, and they have real talents. It's really interesting to watch people do that. Okay, so when in your practice that you go and it's now integral for you to actually look to see what's happening in your external world and look to see what the connection is in your inner world, and being able to accept the responsibility that that's true. How much of is that easy for you now, for example?
The practice of doing it is becoming more. I'm becoming more skilled at it. It doesn't mean that all of the issues. Easy. So like you integrate one piece and you realize, okay, well then there's that piece and another piece.
Yeah.
So it's, but the practice of doing it is becoming more
fluid.
More fluid.
Yeah, you're having more skill. More skill doesn't doesn't minimize the things that are occurring. It just makes it so you can take on bigger bites and and process more information and turn it around faster.
Yeah.
So what's the next step that happens? So once you take a look at what's external, and then how easy is it for you to that's a skill right there, being able to identify that how you're creating that and how you're responsible for it.
Yes.
Do you have any practice around that, or is it just too individually oriented?
Well, my entry point into that is always because the tendency when you see something that's not working for you, or that you struggle with, or that you have some sort of judgment around, the tendency is to separate from it, distance yourself from it, and say, well, that's out there, that's got nothing to do with me. So it always comes back to, but if this is my world, and if this is my experience, then at some level I'm creating it. So therefore, it's part of me. I'm just not taking responsibility for it. I'm just not owning it. So it's almost like creating that platform to say, no matter how difficult this is, no matter how different it looks or separate it looks from you, actually it's part of who you are.
How do you free yourself up to go that you're not judging yourself, that you're creating that? How do you go, it's okay that I'm doing that? How did you get over that hump?
Don't always get over that hump.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
so sometimes you're still judging yourself for what you find.
Yeah, I think judgments slip in there.
Yeah, from time to time, but they don't really slow you down much, or some of them still you beat yourself senseless with your own.
No, I think sometimes they also come in sort of frustration, because if you're going along with the practice and you're saying, well, I'm doing this and I'm getting more fluid at it, well, how come I'm not better at this then? How come if I've been doing this for this many years that I'm not better at doing it? How come I can't integrate this quicker, faster?
Why am I not already? Why am I not in the spot that I'm not?
Yeah, exactly. So, and of course, catching yourself with that and saying, okay, just
maybe accept.
That's not useful.
That's the other one thing is so like allowing is so important in like the non-judgment in the beginning of transformation, the compassion. Part of that compassion is allowing what you find and where you are. I mean, people are so, they look and they go, God, I don't want to be there. This isn't where I am. I'm over there. Or I should be over there. And then, you start, as soon as you start judging, the reason why compassion is so important in transformation, the second that you go, okay, I now know that there's a human condition, there's some things I can do about that, and they start looking around, and then they judge what they find, or they think they should be different, which is judging what they find. They don't allow themselves their human condition or where they are or where they find themselves, that you start slamming. As soon as you judge yourself like that, you start closing transformational doors. You start sticking your head back in the sand because we so reject pain. We so reject that self-judgment. That's, I haven't found anybody that can actually stand in there. In some way, they stick their head in the sand and all those doors close, or most of them, and a lot of people quit several times with that. And then they come back to, I need to be more conscious. They start looking again. They start finding a few things, and instead of seeing them as the nuggets of gold they are from something that's automated, and that they're not in control of, that's creating their life, and that they just need to be a scientist, they go, it needs to be different, this is wrong, and then they stick their head in the sand. It's a horrible place to, it's definitely a common pitfall to keep your eye on, for sure. Sean, I'm still judging myself from time to time, and but I'm pretty good at not doing that. Pretty good at it. Some that I'm still working on.
It's a practice.
It's a practice, hey?
It is.
But when you've done it for a few decades and you're teaching people this, you think that
No, but you see the potential for additional judgments on top of that.
Well, yeah, then you got more opportunities. It's like, oh God, well, how could I still be doing this?
For judgment.
Yeah,
just because you've been doing something for a while, doing it,
and that you've taken so much ground, and you're not even applying your own rules. That you're actually that you can be unconscious and and still in certain ways. It's always fascinating to me. So, and then when you do not judge yourself, when you find that you want to be responsible for something that's happening on the outside, and that you find, I don't know what your process is how you connect them, the external experience and fact is related to some inner process, which I'm assuming is a belief of some kind, is in my lexicon.
Well, it's in a sense is to then take that and integrate it as part of self.
Yeah.
And to say, which means you have to overcome the judgments around it. You have to. There has to be a sense of compassion.
Yes.
And understanding that this is part of who I am.
Yes.
This is not something separate from me. This
yes.
is not something I
and
can
it's not
push
something
outside.
bad. It's not bad.
It's like I've got a whole lot of stuff that's been labelled bad that I picked up years ago, and we all have stuff that we've been told this is bad, that's bad, this is good, this is not. Everything gets categorized, everything gets labelled acceptable, non acceptable.
We have to change that labeling.
And exactly, so you really have to pull up those beliefs and examine them, and say, well, where did I get this from? This is just a default belief that I've been living with for years.
And then what do you do? So when you come to where you see that it's a pattern,
well, change the belief.
Okay, and you do change the belief.
Yeah. Change the belief.
How are you with that? Like over time, like how? I have a particular experience about that. So when you realize that there's a belief that you've been externalizing, that you found that it's something internal, and then that you want to change that belief, what's your practice in changing beliefs look like and success rate?
If it's a big belief and it's worth really, and I have a sense that if I change this belief, it'll affect a lot of things in my life. I mean, some beliefs are small things you could just change.
They're not first on priority.
Yeah. I mean, in just sort of you question, okay, that just doesn't work. I don't need to believe that.
But it's easy to abandon just by being conscious.
Yeah, but exactly. But some beliefs are pretty well entrenched, and they're fundamental, and they're almost like foundation to a whole lot of other beliefs.
Yes.
So in that sense, giving it the attention it needs, perhaps in a meditative process or visualization process, I'll sort of visualize going into the subconscious, or in them symbolically, underwater or underground or something, and then
But
sometimes
ultimately making an investment in a different feeling and
exactly.
a different belief
And
that
what-
actually helps you in the next moment when that
Absolutely.
comes up.
And creating a different emotion around that, a different feeling. So laying that back down in the subconscious with that feeling, so that it holds. I mean, to me, that feels like rather than just thinking something through. Some beliefs are easier just to through that awareness, but some beliefs have got that emotional. They hold in place with a very strong emotional.
There's some work
content.
involved.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's loosening that up and laying down a new belief with also with a strong emotional content, like an
Yes.
excitement about how will my life be with this belief,
Yes.
rather than the limiting.
And the
contracting
investment
one
is
I had
in that
before.
excitement,
Yes.
and that's the thing that
Exactly.
actually starts coming
Yes.
eventually, because it's going to be
Yes.
through repetition that starts coming into the
Exactly.
moment. Okay.
Yeah. So which is a much more expansive feeling and sense of being.
Ah,
that new
okay, than the
belief,
one that you
rather
had.
than the contracting,
Ah.
restrictive fear type emotion that was holding the previous belief in place.
Interesting. I have a similar process. It's slightly different, but my practice is that I get a hold of what the belief is, and it's usually a sentence. Like I can, that feeling.
Yes.
That belief is a sentence.
Yes.
So I can actually figure out what that sentence is, and if I really look at, it doesn't matter how fundamentally that, we'll go with the biggest ones that you really have to work at in displacing. Is probably my best word for it, but every time something has come up in life and I've been reactive, you've got an emotional investment. That's what I call it. It's that it's a fear of mine, so I'm emotionally invested. When I'm worried about it, I'm emotionally invested, and when it comes up, I'm emotionally invested. So I have all, and I see it as an ATM. So this belief, I go stand in front of this ATM, and I've got lots of. You just take a look at all the time I've spent feeling this as it's being true, and I just see that as deposits, and that you can take a look at what the number of that figuratively of what that deposit is, and if I'm only going to displace that when I can stop making those deposits, those emotional deposits and investment in that belief, is when I can actually take them out of there and get in a different line. And I start going, so what do I really believe? Because when you take a look at those beliefs and you go, well, I don't even believe in that. The more I go along in a transformational way, I don't believe this is true. I don't believe in this sense of lack of whatever that is. And then I can go, well, what do I believe? What is actually true for me? And then I'll write a sentence for that, and I'll go, great. So then what happens in the moment when this one comes up? I remember going, I need to remember this. I flag this emotion. I can only flag one thing at a time. So when it comes up in the moment, whatever I'm being reactive to that I want to change, I flag that so that I become conscious to it. And that once I flagged it, then I start being conscious to it on a regular basis. But I'm so reactive, I can't remember what my new belief is because my investment is, overcoming me. So then what I had to do is I actually had to intend the first intention was I want to notice this in the moment when it happens. The second thing that I actually had to attach to it was a little message in a bottle about what do I actually believe now? What is my new truth? What is the thing that I want to invest in?
Because you have to replace it.
I have to replace it. And I can't remember in the moment because I realized I'm just overrun with the experience and my investment in the negative and the lack.
Yeah.
So then I would actually attach a bottle and I go, okay, I had to write it down and shit. I'd carry it around in my wallet. And I'd be digging in my wallet and oh, right, yeah, that's what it is. And then, because I can only work at one at a time, so there's only one thing in my wallet. I don't have to do that anymore, but it worked. And then in the moment I'd read it and I'd go, right. And then I could actually change my emotional investment right there in that moment because it wasn't my deepest truth. And I'd go get in that other line and I go, now I'm good. And it would change my actions. And sometimes I would remember 3 days after it happened, I'd be digging in my wallet. 3 days after something happened, to go, right, that's it. And that you could judge yourself for that. But that's the thing that got me closer and closer and closer to the moment of remembering what my new truth is in spite of the old one in the moment and being able to make that investment.
I like that way of looking at it as, is this my deepest truth?
Yeah.
And sifting through. I mean,
Is
spending a
this
Saturday afternoon sifting through your beliefs, say, is this my deepest truth?
Yes.
No, nowhere near it.
Yes.
Is this my deepest truth? No. No. Is this my deepest truth? Well, it's getting better.
Getting
is this
closer.
it just actually, like the way you would sort of do spring cleaning or anything else. It's just like sort of sit there and say, what the hell am I actually believing? What are these things that are generating my reality that are left to their own devices?
Yes.
That have been unchecked for years.
Forever.
Forever. And they are generating all sorts of situations and things that I'm having to contend with on a daily basis,
Yes.
it's worthwhile to sit down and actually work out what these things are,
True.
and what putting beliefs that are closer to.
I found that I got overwhelmed with having more than one. So it's a good thing to do spring cleaning and actually know what your emotional investments are. But I would pick the biggest one at any given time. What was really kind of annoying me about that this was my life experience, and that's the one I wrote in my wallet. But it's a good practice to be able to look at all of them.
I don't think I've ever tried more than one at a time.
Yeah, I can't.
The thought of a Saturday afternoon spring cleaning is a little bit overwhelming. Actually, I don't know where that came from.
No, but it's true. You can actually look at those things, and it's
but
a
at least figure
beautiful
out what they are.
experience.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that having more than one, I couldn't actually displace my investment. I had to do them one at a time, because it was just so. It took all of my ability. I didn't have any more bits to process more than one. And the words I want to use is being more aligned with who I truly am. More aligned with who I truly am. And those
Aligned with who I truly am.
and then I'd go get in that line. And I had a practice in the moment when I was being reactive that I could change from one investment that I didn't want to an investment that I did want. And that's the only way I could do that.
Yeah.
So I'm very. That's a real gift to me. I really love that process and really have used that for my change, for being happier and more joyous and having a life that works for
I
me.
like that. It's like becoming a truer version of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
It's a lifelong journey. Sure. Wow.
Well, this is a lot of fun.
It's fantastic.
Do you have more,
Could do
or
this.
is this?
I'm done for today.
Yeah. Well,
But,
just in closing that is that it's really great to be able to sit with somebody in that. I don't think we could have planned this. You can't plan this unfolding of the conversation that we've had, and just really happy to have somebody like you in my life that this can occur, because it's not a normality, and somebody that has the understanding of the landscape to be able to have these distinctions to reflect back what they're doing, and having practices to compare practices. And so I really value that experience, and I'm looking forward to more of the unfolding.
Absolutely, it's like journeying through the landscape. I like that way of seeing it, because it is about discovering, and then somebody pulls you over and says, well, how about here? And what about behind this hill and across the river over here? And I get that sense of journeying and traveling.
Yes.
That when somebody else is pointing out something and you're looking at this and you've got your way of doing it.
Yes.
And I enjoy that process.
Everything that I have, I've stolen from somewhere. And sometimes what your practice isn't going to help me at all. Yeah. Sometimes I steal little bits of it, and sometimes I steal the entirety. So really having other people to compare tools to is really a blessing. Yeah. So the more the merrier, frankly.
Fantastic. Enjoying this. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much, Gavin.